We're live.
Hello, welcome to Lowballing. It's me, Joe Hansen, as you can probably tell, and my buddy Alan is here with me. We're both authors, and I'm not going to repeat over and over and over and over again how many books we have out there. We just are writers, and if you want to look us up, by all means, you can. Today we have USA Today best-selling author Ryan Schow. Am I saying that right, Ryan?
No, sir, but if you did, you would be like number 8 in my whole life that got it. It's pronounced Scow. I used to tell people it looks kind of funny, but it rhymes with cow, and then you can't forget. So Scow.
Schow. Oh, okay, cool. And he has just had his 44th book release. And that series is called?
It's the Sunset on America series. It's book 2. It's called The Ashes of the Unknown. And the first book was The Burning Hollow, which I released on the 1st of this month. So these two are coming within the same month.
That's awesome. 44. I have like 20, 21 out there, and it has taken me 8 years to get these out. So when did you start writing, Ryan?
Oh man, I started in like 5th grade, but you want to know when I got published first?
Yeah, when you published, yeah.
I think it was like November 2016. I published my first book, which was an urban fantasy book called Swan with 2 N's, and it came out just a roaring success. First time. Oh wait a minute.
Really?
No, anything.
Wow.
My first series of 10 books did not sell very much because I kind of expected that you come in here, you put you write good books, you get good covers, you put them in the market's going to respond. And I think I made $6,000 that year with all 10 books. So yeah, it was a little bit different. Post-apocalyptic fiction is when I really took off, and in that case, I really went roaring into the stratosphere in 2017. I think it was November or December 2017.
So your first book was a hit, though?
No, sir, it was not.
It was not. That was sarcasm. Okay, yeah. I'm picking up on that now.
I'm a relentless smartass. So yeah.
Hey, I love that.
Yeah, no,
because
I do very well because I didn't write it to market. It fit sandwiched in between all these weird markets. I could never really get it to go to a clean audience, and so it really.
Did you have several written before you started publishing?
Yes, sir. I had 6.
Okay. Did you actually go through an editor, or were you still in the or were you under the assumption that you could edit yourself?
I went through an editor I could afford.
Okay.
So I got an editor. I went through an editor I could afford. I thought I knew a lot about writing at the time, and proper English and everything. I got A's in all my classes. And it's really a lie that we tell ourselves in the beginning, is that we can get by and create a good book without solid editing. And in many genres, you can get away with it. They're not as picky in post-apocalyptic fiction or urban fantasy or mystery or romance. But you start getting into some of the I write thrillers as well. That's a very nitpicky audience, and writing thrillers actually made me much better. And I've learned quite a bit in these last probably 12 or 13 books on editing. So it's important.
Yeah, I thought with my first book, I thought I was savant-like intellect when it comes to writing. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many jelly beans are in the jar, but when it came to writing, I was like a savant. I just, and all your hopes and dreams are put in it, and thank God you didn't quit your job because it didn't sell. Sonny did not sell.
Yeah, that's a lot of new authors. Is one of the things when I first broke out and left my job, is people ask what's the amount of money that took before you left? And I'm far more of a risk taker than most people, but I've also been writing for probably 26 years, and I've gone through, I think, 2 or 3 times where I left my job for 2 or 3 years at a time. I would go in, and I was in sales, so I would go in and I would make $50,000 or $60,000, put it in savings, give myself time to live. And 3 times I couldn't get out and make it work. And this 4th time was the biggest risk. But I saw that The Last War, which was my first post-apocalyptic fiction book, I saw that starting to really take off. I really kind of got into the writer's market at that point in time through K-boards, looking at other authors who'd done successful releases. Izzy Shows is the first person that I looked at, and I'm grateful for her. She unfortunately kind of burned out for a little bit writing too many books, and I'm not sure if she came back, but that little girl was a firecracker, and she showed how to do a proper first release. And I thought, okay, if I can do this, then this might give me the jump I need. And holy cow, yeah, it went through the, yeah, it was a, there's a protocol to it, because you've got to make sure that you tease Amazon's algorithms properly, which is a deeper conversation that, I'll confuse too many new writers, but there's a teasing of the system that allows you to show enough sales over a trajectory of about 7 days with a good enough closing percentage that Amazon will now kind of grab you and give you a hand. So I learned that as a newbie, tested it, and it worked out really well, and I have a career in part because of that. So,
wow, that's like stunning. I had no idea that. I always fall so short on my releases.
it's a
I go through. I hire the cover artist. I hire the editor. I go through the whole process. I've been writing this book for 6 months, and it's finished when it hits Amazon shelf, and so I always push for that, and I should take care. I should take a lot more care with those last few steps before I push it out the door. I should slow my roll. And
yeah, I've got a friend who's a producer in Hollywood that's working on writing some books, and they make a difference for him because he can use those books as he can use them through his own rights to go in now and put his own screenplay together and start gathering the money together. So it's intellectual property is a big thing right now in Hollywood. And he's got my last War series and my Atlas Hargrove series that he's marketing there. But and ironically, he's the guy that brought Walking Dead to TV. So
okay.
I'm helping him, and we're having these regular conversations about your early release material, like what you've got to do. The prep for an early release is big to make sure that it takes off. And for me, I've got a $6,500 a month lifestyle in California. I can't afford to screw up a launch. Yeah. And so even now, where I feel like I have it down pat, Amazon is having some glitch in their system. And so these books are not showing in 6 of the 9 categories, which are very big categories for me. So, I'm having to use Amazon ads and some little Facebook ads to try and push it and just to kind of keep it up there. It's the Burning Hollows held, #1 new release for 3 weeks now, but I'm still, on the phone with Amazon saying, what's going on, guys? You got to fix the problem. You're killing me. It's me out.
Well, you have name recognition too. I mean, I see your name. I'm like, I know what that is. I know what I'm getting into when I read it. So that helps a lot, right? Too, with your,
Yeah. You take time and measures to do it. You want people to follow you on Amazon. So hitting that follow button lets Amazon let them know every time that a new release comes out. Got my email list that I've naturally. I haven't bought anything. They just come in from the page of the book. That's I've got my Facebook group. I'm also a one of the main authors in the DD12 group, which is about 9,400 people, I think now.
Yeah,
so
it's pretty
good. Kind of gather this, whole group of readers and listeners for audiobooks. You find that the community is one step out. You write books that they love, and so I spend time talking to readers and talking to the group and finding out what people like. I learned that from sales a long time ago. I was a sales manager for about 20 years. Ran probably one of the biggest crews, or the best crews in the world. Just because Alan, I don't know if you were in the Sacramento area when the Roseville Auto Mall came on board, but they're the second largest auto mall in the world, and one of the best crews in that auto mall. So sales is in my blood, and the one thing that I learned, because I've closed tens of thousands of deals, is find out what people want and do everything you can to give it to them. And I brought that with me into writing and storytelling. And obviously, I'm going to tell my own story. But I want to see what things people are interested in so that I can kind of bring some of those elements in. And in doing that, it's really kind of brought readers into the creation world with me. And I found that alone engenders readers to you. I think that's the right word, engenders. Brings people to you, and they enjoy to read.
You're a uniter.
Yes, I am a uniter.
You're a uniter.
I want to go back. Okay, go ahead, Alan.
Oh, I was about to say, I just finished Last Light of Day, and I really enjoyed that one. Logan, the transformation of the Logan character, I really enjoyed because I could kind of identify with that guy, you know. You know, going from like, okay, you know, here I am stumbling around, you know, don't know my head from my ass, and then all of a sudden you become this hero. I mean, I'm not saying I've done that, but I can identify not knowing my, you know, the other part. And I really enjoyed the buildup of the characters on that one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the Last Light of Day was fun. That Dark Days of the After series, I love all of my series. Each of them are a little bit different. You don't get a lot of authors. They tell you, look, people enjoy reading the same story over in a matter of ways. And I've heard you guys talk about this on the podcast. Is people will enjoy a story that has different characters, similar situations, a certain formula. And I agree with that, because when I, read books by some of my favorite authors, I look for that as well. For me, because I write so much and it comes out so quickly, I have to be very cautious to write something different each time. The Dark Days of the After series, which you're talking about, the prequel, The Last Light of Day, was probably one of my favorite series to write. And part of it is just balls to the wall brutal. I mean, it's brutal. There's a lot of, on my box set, I think I've got maybe almost 1,100 reviews, and a lot of people are like, this is probably the most violent post-apoc series that I've read. That's because, I imagine that in real world, take it this, for example, we watched the riots of 2020, or the peaceful protests of 2020, where everybody were getting, people were getting killed, run over, set on fire. I watched all the underground videos.
Minneapolis is my hometown. That's where it all started,
You watched it, and I was friends with a girl who's right around the corner giving me, the blow by blow. But when we saw the violence that came out of there, that a lot of the public didn't see, because whether we're in groups, on Instagram with firearms groups or stuff like that, you see a lot of these incidences where people have had to defend their lives, people getting beat to death with freaking skateboards. And I looked at the Dark Days of the After series and I said, these post-apoc books are too light. Like, that's not an accurate representation. It goes nuts. And then I'm schooled in violence. I have a second-degree black belt in Ishinru and the equivalent in Shorin-ryu, and about 12 years of martial arts study, a lot of street tactics. And
are those both Okinawan?
Yes, sir. Yep, they are.
I was friends with an old Shotokan student, and he trained in Shotokan and Shoryu, and
I like Shotokan. Yeah, that's a good art. I fought a couple of guys in Shotokan, and those are some solid fellows.
Yeah.
the good ones anyway, that worked their way up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I understand street violence and what can happen and where things can go wrong from my own training, both training and teaching. And the Dark Days of the After series to me is about as realistic as it could get. And I loved it for that reason, but I also love the characters. I mean,
I appreciate some good violence. I appreciate the violence in that.
It's got to be relevant. It's got to be relevant for sure. You can't be you can't go in and just glamorize violence and be like, okay, I'm going to stab this guy in the eye and we're going to, make everybody cheer. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
If you're going to do that, you're taking a chance with the audience that, if you're going to finish someone, you pop a knife into the eye, pump it down into the brain, and you're good.
Yeah.
People don't like hearing stuff like that sometimes, because it's a little scary to think about it, but that's the reality of, hand-to-hand combat, or even, people who go to war and train these things. I've trained with some of these people who have, and it's a different kind of a story. So yeah, Dark Days of the After was a fun one for me. I loved that series.
Well, you hit it right, because I enjoy it.
Well, that's
good. Sorry about the dogs. They saw a piece of plastic blowing outside and needed to get so
friendly zone.
Let's go back to the part you were talking about earlier that I personally fantasize about.
Yeah.
You said you quit your job four times.
4 times.
And that you're kind of a shoot from the hip kind of guy.
Yeah.
Are you married?
Oh, yes, sir, I am. I got a wife who's amazing. She has been. We've been. I think in December it'll be 30 years, and so we've been through all kinds of ups and downs together, and she's been fantastic, supported me through all of the craziness. And it does take a toll on wives. You know, we sit in a
I know.
hour upon hour upon hour banging away at the keyboard, hoping to get our break and make something that we
Why
can do.
can't you come watch a movie with me?
Oh,
I want to finish this.
I mean, you're rehashing last night's conversation and the one before that, and the night before that.
Yeah.
But tonight I will be watching a movie with my wife.
And that's you gotta. There are points where you've got to set it aside and spend time with your significant others. I mean, my wife and I have been married for 37 years, been together for 40.
Oh, that's
like
great.
There comes a time where it's just, you've got to pay attention to that other half, because if you lose that other half, it's going to change the quality of your writing, whether you want it to or not.
Yep, and your finances. Yeah, for sure.
And your finances, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, so it was hard for me to quit my job, and I think I pulled out a little bit early. I had, I think, the third book in the last War series done, which is the Ophidian Horde. So I had
should have waited for the COVID layoffs.
Oh man, well I was scared of the COVID layoffs, but post APOC people did fantastic through it. The people that went through, you almost feel guilty. The challenges that everybody else had, but people want to read about stuff that's scary and to some degree happening, so that they can see how they might handle that in the real world. And I've noticed that a lot. This is one of the things I love about post APOC is we have a lot of preppers that are in our group. I mean, a lot of preppers in our group. So in terms of figuring out how to survive tough situations, there's this amazing community of people that are there to kind of support really every avenue that you have or any hole that you need filled. And so,
when I got into it, it was all kind of zombie. And then under that, though, or kind of beside it, was this apocalypse that was a financial crisis. We went through 2 years of authors writing about EMPs incorrectly. And, where what they were describing was more of a solar flare that would hit dead on.
Right. It's definitely,
and it's like we have all learned these things together. If you don't know that it's called a magazine and not a clip by now.
Are you kidding me? It's called a clip. Oh man, it's a clip, Joe.
I was writing one and I was tired and I was getting lazy, so
hey man, I learned
my editor wrote me back. She said, "Do you really want to call it an assault rifle, Alan?" I was like, "Oh," I said, "You know what? I just wanted to get that done right there. I was about done with the book." She said, "Do you really?" Because she's bless her heart, you know who I'm talking about, Cherie Castellanos, and I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll change it." I'm glad I did, but I was, sometimes you're just like, you've been staring at this, and you're like, "Oh, okay."
It goes to a blur near the end. These are assault hands, by the way.
I picked a helicopter. I picked a helicopter that was a prototype and never actually was made, and put it in the story because it was a really cool helicopter.
Did you get nailed?
Brian Parker practically bent me over a stump.
Yep. Oh yeah.
There's no need for you to be making mistakes like that when you know all of us. Talking about the Phalanx Press guys,
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I've worn Lundy's ear off, or jail born, asking them stupid questions. You can tell when they're tired. Jail born will always say, "Well, I'll tell you that, but I gotta kill you," So, but they'll answer up until the time they're tired of you. Were you military, Ryan?
No, sir. I got family that was military. I went into martial arts because we were at peace. Now we're at war.
Same with me.
Options to go to the military, but I was with my wife at the time, and so I ended up going into martial arts just because I kind of felt like we were going into weird times.
Kind of a new age,
Yeah, it's a kind of a new dark age is what it feels like, a social dark age. I mean, these times are terrible. Like, I hate these times. I want the 80s back. It's so fast.
Oh,
me too, bro.
God.
Me too.
Right?
70s and 80s were a riot.
And 80s were
I'm
great.
older than you, but the 70s were fun too, guys. That's
I bet.
You should have seen what was left over from the 60s.
I was 72 when I was born, and yeah, so I just missed it. But the 60s looked like a lot of fun.
I was born in 60, so
man,
it was, we grew up during the time of the best, the greatest.
Yeah, we did.
Time to be a child, playing kickball on the corner or baseball on the corner.
Tetherball.
Getting told by your mom, I don't want to see you home until the street lights come on.
Yeah, by dark.
Yeah, and it just those days are gone. Now people are going out with their kid and they're being monitored all the time and watched all the time. And I hear some of these stories about these bullies, and I've got to kind of cover my eyes like this and walk away because I was on both ends of that stick.
We all were. Growing up at the time, you're bullied, you realize it's bad, you stop, and then at some point in time you realize, sometimes you gotta crank one off on the bully, make him stop.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it was the greatest time to grow up, and I really feel sorry for what they're going through now.
I do
too. Hopefully there'll be enough of them that won't lose touch with their physical self, because I think that's what is hurting so much. So many people don't have any physical strife, that it's all mental anguish, so they need drugs to deal with it and antidepressants. I'm not a professional about this, but
are you sure?
Anyways,
sound like it.
I'm just opinionated, Al. I'm just opinionated.
Ryan, I got a question for you.
Yeah, fire away, Alan.
Are you a reader? Do you read a lot?
I would like to be a reader. Before I started writing, I read probably 50 to 80 books a year for probably 10, 15 years.
That was the second part of my question.
Yeah. When I started writing, it makes it very hard to read, and it makes it very hard to concentrate on one particular book. I've always read one book from beginning to end. Even if I hate it, I'm really upset about it, I'll still finish it just because I was raised that way. Right. And I'll bitch all along the way, but I can't read this. I read this book recently where the grammar was so horrible, and this woman has made hundreds of thousands of dollars on this book, and it was the most atrocious grammar. I was pissed off every single page, which is very, very rare. Right. And she's got like 15,000 reviews with like a 4.5 star review. I'm like, what are these people?
I hate those people. I hate them.
I love her because she shows you that in some areas, if you can do a lot of things right, you don't need to do everything right. But at the same point in time, as much as I slave over editing and trying to make sure everything's perfect, it really kind of grates me a bit.
But it's like she wrote that book and said, this is good enough for state work. Here you go.
And you know what? A lot of state workers reading it and just don't know the difference and don't care. I think that's one of the great things too about writers is we can look at it and say, we don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
As long as we're always evolving to some degree, and then we get far enough along where we become our own worst critic, which is where I am, and say it doesn't matter. It has to be as perfect as it can possibly be, and I'll be upset if it's not.
There is such a thing as creative license, true. I mean, as an author,
Yeah. I've read a lot of good stories that are not, edited well, or there's, the grammar's a little off, and that's okay because we're buying the story, right?
Right.
The story's got to entertain and take you someplace different. And in that case, if it does the job, I can overlook a few errors. Traditional work too. But to answer your question that you didn't ask me, Alan, I read probably about 5 or 6 books a year right now. I try and read. I try and get in and read about maybe 2 or 3 if I can after releases when I give myself enough time. So I'm reading the Mad Mick right now.
That's a good series.
Yeah, I'm reading the Mad Mick.
It's a fun one.
Picked up Kyla Stone's new book, so I'm super excited to read that. And then I'm reading a Frida McFadden book, The Housemaid, which is completely different. It's a mystery series, but I like that she's one of the, if not the number one writer, she's one of the top writers in the world and on Amazon right now. So it's always important, I think, to study who the top writers are, what they do well, and see how you can kind of incorporate that into your work. So I bring in mystery, I bring in action I get from thriller writers, military aspects from, military study that I do. I've got a lot of military friends that, help me out. Fighting, post-apoc, thriller, any kind of thing that I can bring in to really round out the book, I think tends to add credibility to the post-apoc world, which is it's a subgenre. So of science fiction. So we're always trying to kind of bolster our name and get up there with the big boys.
Yeah, it's military sci-fi. Yep. So do you do Audible?
Yes. I have excuse me, Kevin Pierce, who he's billed as the voice of the apocalypse. The minute I heard
he did my Wayward Son.
Yeah, the minute I heard him, I'm like, I'm done. I want this guy. And he reached out, and Lisa Akers put us together. Thank the Lord for her.
Sure. Yeah, I've hired Kevin in the past. He's very good.
Yeah,
very good.
He's great. He just finished The Burning Hollow, so that's been out about 7 or 8 days, 9 days, and sold 260 copies of that, which is going well. I've got probably almost 50,000 audiobooks that I've sold with him over the last 2.5 years. So done well. I love Audible.
Yeah. But you listen to it?
No, sir. I can't. My brain goes 18 different ways. I'm like 56 cats put into a box when I listen to anything. So
really? Wow.
I can't focus. It's hard because what happens is I listen to the story and I go, oh my God, that sounds
to the point of using a cat reference. I thought you weren't going to swear.
Go. Don't refer to the pussycat. I never swear. So I can't listen to it. I've tried, but it's hard for me to focus because then I start thinking about my own story and go, oh, that's good. That spurs like an idea. I can spin it off like this, and then it starts building this whole different pieces on whatever book I'm working on. I always stay in one book. I have not been outside of one book for probably since I started. So when I'm done with the last book, as I'm doing the final edits, I'm already now planning out the next book because I know where the series is going to go, or I'm planning out the next series and I'm kind of excited to write that. So yeah, it's hard for me to focus on reading because it always goes back to writing, and that always preoccupies my mind.
I used to try to do 2 books, 3 books at once, and it just doesn't work for me. I have to focus.
It's very hard.
One book. But I listen to Audible voraciously. I'm an estimator for my job, so I'm in there doing math and drawing houses, and I always have an audio book going.
That's awesome. I envy you, man.
Well, I wish I didn't have to go to work. I'd much rather be writing, but that's a flaw in my marketing. I mean, my marketing is my flaw. That's where
it's a lot of people. It's very, you've got to really trade brains. You're going from a creative brain to, practical application and business management, trying to understand your readers. Alan, look like you look like you want to say something.
Oh, I was just gonna say marketing's hard.
Marketing
is hard, man.
Marketing is a puzzle you can never put together, because just when you think you got all the pieces in place, something changes.
Right.
And you realize nothing changed. You just didn't get it right.
So, how come Pornhub does so well, and they don't really have to market?
Pornhub,
but
they've got a lot of visuals.
You got to market your books.
Right there.
If we can market the same way.
Yeah.
Yes, I can't get pictures of half-naked girls on my covers though, because then people will be like, "Is that post-APOC or is that APOC in the erotic world?" two different genres.
Yeah, it's my bane. It's my weakness. I did focus on, my skills as a writer, and I put a lot of energy into that. But I figure the marketing is going to have to wait until I have time when I retire. And like you, I've been in sales a lot, and a face-to-face situation, and working with clients and contacting and follow-ups. I'm excellent at that. But when it comes to the whole electronic thing, maybe it's my age and the fact that I'm not that good with computers that I just draw a blank.
I think that one of the things that really helped me out immensely is I took Mark Dawson's course, and the ads for authors, I think is what it is. And that was a great course. That gave me a lot of the basics. It gave me a lot of advanced information too, and helped me kind of understand the larger platform. It is expensive, but but it's worth it. They give you options to, pay once a month for a year. You split it up in 12 different payments. And, that's what I did.
Mark Dawson.
Mark Dawson, yeah, Mark Dawson's one of the guys that really kind of pioneered the education system for writers. And I didn't think that I needed it. And then I realized very quickly that I did, because I didn't understand where I wasn't understanding. And that was how to kind of work your way around Facebook advertising, how to understand AMS, which nobody understands AMS. I don't even know how the heck they put together a platform and really give you almost no knowledge. You've got to take guys or girls who have been in and really worked it for a while. Even now, 4 or 5 years later, having spent tens of thousands of dollars on AMS, it's still kind of hard to figure out like what works and what doesn't work. It's a lot of trial and error. And to kind of speak to your point, Joe, you've got to have a mental framework that is not been crushed by work to kind of allow you to understand how it works, to pull over the data. Because I'm like you too, I didn't have to work in computers in my business. In the car business, in sales, we didn't really have to do that. Yeah, I did reports and I understood numbers and I understood the business model. And I understand people very, very well because of it, which helps me write better. But I didn't understand the data crunching, the computers, and my marketing, or my degree from college is in marketing. So I thought I should have an understanding of this, but everything changes so quickly. And so going in and doing the marketing is what helped me have the career. Doing some of this stuff at 2 and 3 a.m. in the morning when I worked a 15-hour day and my brain feels just stepped on, is some of the trials and tribulations that a lot of, new authors go through to kind of break into that world of being a full-time writer. You have to get kicked in the teeth every freaking day, one way or another, to get there. And people say, oh, it's easy. It's easy because we get used to the struggle. It's not easy. That's why 99% of people fail, is because it's hard to get in there and really know what you need to know, but you got to be in it. So
it would be easier if I knew something about romance. Then I could write romance novels.
Yeah, well, you know what? You probably could, because romance is a huge category, and there are some people.
I know it's big. I know it.
My mom always told me, Alan, write Harlequin when I was a teenager, and because I used to write when I was a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
and she'd say, "Right, you got to write Harlequin. They make a lot of money writing Harlequin." Man, I wish I would listen to her.
Alan, you can be a girl these days too, brother. So
I wrote a couple of sex scenes in one of my books, and I couldn't have my wife read it. It was pretty bad. I was writing for a publisher, and they were obsessed with lesbians and sex scenes. So I had to throw in a couple.
Wow, we have a lot in common.
I think I made myself blush writing it. But they say write what you know, right? So
right.
I enjoy your books, Ryan. I really do. You write characters great, that, like I said before, were relatable, and your action scenes. And I was wondering when why I was familiar with the areas, and now I know, because you're from those areas.
Yeah.
You've been in those areas. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I know where that's at. And it's always nice to see that in a book, somewhere you've been.
Yeah.
It's not a prerequisite, but it's always nice to stumble across that in a book.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's.
I should thank you. I should thank you ahead of time, Ryan, because you've been one of the most informative guests we've ever had on here. I'm really kind of hanging on your every word right now, and thank you for that.
It's my pleasure.
I loved your Ember series. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten back to any of your other series, but I fully intend to. However, now that you told me the urban fantasy didn't sell so well, I'll kind of avoid that.
Well, it's actually kind of funny. Well, that's what I thought going into post-APOC, and then people started to stumble on it. And the funny thing is like I wrote that series, and when I wrote it over years, it actually helped me. There's 1 million words in that series.
Wow.
And so I was thinking, man, I don't want to waste this series. I want this series to do something. So the goal that I had for it was, I want that series to pay for a new car. And if I can, if I can do that at $500-600 a month, I'll be happy. And it's funny because that series actually has earned out like $60,000 or $70,000 to this point. Wow. Which it's not, some of my other series, my last war series has been, I think I've earned out 250 grand out of it. So it's not, it's not the bigger series, it's the smaller one, but it still has made money and people love that. Like there's people that are read post APOC that I constantly hear, this is my favorite series ever. I've read it 3 times over and that makes me super happy. Yeah. But I also learned how to write women characters because my character was a teenage girl and I thought, this ought to be interesting. So let's go this route because I thought I wanted to go to urban fantasy. And so that actually helped me write women really well. So I get characters like Eliana.
There are a couple authors out there that when they write teenage girls, they just write about a really macho shithead guy and remove all the hair. And that's
mine was it was genetic modification in teens. Yeah. Basically, the series is genetically modified teens run by immortal Nazi scientists, and that's actually what it was. So,
well, I read somewhere where the teenage girl is beating the heck out of 300-pounders, and
happens all the time.
And it's just like they just don't have the body mass. Yeah. And maybe that's skilled. Okay, I'll believe they're that skilled. But some of these guys, they kick the guy's just not gonna really feel it.
Yeah. It's interesting. I trained martial arts for a while, and so we trained a lot of younger, anywhere from 6 and up is when we trained. So we had kids classes, adult classes, and advanced classes. And we trained black belts, and even some of the black belts, like get kicked in the face by some of these girls, and they'll put some stink on that.
Oh yeah, it'll hurt.
Not the same as if you get whacked by a guy because you have bigger, the guys have bigger bone mass and body mass. And let me tell you, we raised some ferocious little girls. And those girls, man, they kick you in the cup and you feel it in your skull. So there's no joke. These girls are in their minds fighting for their lives. And
absolutely.
Yeah, so when you see that, and then you kind of go back to what you're talking about, there's an air of believability that you have to, kind of set aside for the story. Right. But yeah, teenage girls are not going to come in. This is where you want knives or guns or something, an apocalyptic standpoint, not a normal life, but in an
they can have an impact and they can have the skills, but it's just a simple matter of physics, really. Unless they're hitting a vital, like the nuts or the neck or something like that. They're not going to have the body mass to affect a 250-pound man by kicking him in the chest.
Right. Yeah. Doesn't work. There's no vitals there. You got a big rib cage. Yeah. That's where you need some of them to do some stabs. I think in the last war, it was the 0 Hour, Indigo, who's one of my fan favorites. She's a 19-year-old teen. There's a guy getting down trying to do some nasty stuff with a woman, and she shoots him in the butthole with an arrow.
That'll end it. That'll stop your day.
That stops things. That makes things very painful until you can go end it. I hate rapists, so there you go. Everybody wins. So.
Yeah, we've all read. Yeah, I've experienced a lot of very, very good independent authors, and that makes me feel great when people are just coming out and their guide and their motivation is just their own creativity. I love that. I think that is awesome. There's been a lot of really bad stuff out there that I've read too. And I don't even want to get into zombie rapes. That's just too much. But
yeah, I don't know. People don't want to read about that. If I allude to that in books, I've been, oh my God, called some of the worst names by a couple of people because you get up to that point, you don't go all the way, someone's going to kill them. Right. But it's still like if you're a woman, especially if you're a good-looking woman, in the apocalypse, you become a commodity. You become the person who's got the most to lose because men are aggressive, and that when you have the wrong man who's got those inclinations and no one can stop them, that makes it very, very dangerous for women. And so most writers avoid that. I say, forget it. I'll come in and I'll write something kind of close because it brings people into the story. And we have a lot of women readers, and so they're kind of hanging on, going, "Oh my gosh, what's going to happen?" Now, I have a scene in the Ashes of the Unspeakable where a scene was near that, and I wrote it was the scene in the book that's going to make people go, "Oh shit, what just happened?" So yeah, I'll dispense of rapists before they can get their fun. But if you take it up to the line, you bring people into that. Oh my God, please don't, and it's like, oh good. So
yeah, I can't get into the details of things like that. I'll pretty much romance either, bring it right up to the line and then move on. Deal with the aftermath and the insinuation, and
I'll allude to it. I had a pretty nasty Russian character in my first book, Operation Zulu, and he was a rapist, but it alluded and he talked about it, and he got a good comeuppance, and that's fun.
That's a
do that with the bad guys. Yeah,
it really is. I think that's one of the challenges is if you really want to have dynamic range in your books, if you're going to go violent like I do, and like you probably would have to if you're in the apocalypse, you got to have someone that the readers want dead. Like they want so dead in the worst way. And so you have to really kind of find that fine line with your readers. Like, how far can I take the bad guy? You don't want to do rapes. If you're going to do anything with children, which is my Atlas Hargrove series, because I hate pedophiles, I hate human traffickers. They get horrific deaths in that series. That was the series that I wrote that I can't stand what's going on at the border with a lot of these kids, and I need an outlet. So Atlas Hargrove was my outlet. But if you're going to write something with kids, you are treading on dangerous water. So you're dangerous ground. So you have to get to the point where they hate this person enough. And then when you take a chainsaw to them, people cheer. Who are church leaders are like, yes, So you have to have an audience that wants them dead to be able to go in and write about a horrific death and not have them go, wow, this young man is very violent. When I'm not. I'm a pacifist, but I can still do violence very well if I need to. So,
and you do.
Yeah,
you do.
I hope I never have to, but in the books, I most definitely do.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. You got to have fun with what you're writing, or it's just not worth it.
Yeah, too. They want a lot of times they want someone who's willing to kind of push that edge a little bit, so long as you don't cross the line. And that's you got to find that line. And
and don't kill the dog.
Never kill the dog.
Never kill the dog.
No, don't kill the dog.
Yeah,
I killed my protagonist, and I got a lot of heat over that. Everybody liked all of the books. I have 5 books. It's in the 5 Roads to Texas series, and I have 5 of us wrote one novel, and then we each took our characters and went on with our own storyline. So I have 5 novels after that, and so.
You got a problem there, Joe?
The dog jumping.
We're starting 2 houses to try to get done before winter, so it's busy right now.
Man.
But anyways, now you made me lose my place.
You killed off your protagonist in 5 Roads.
Killed off my protagonist in like the 3rd book, and everybody, the way I saw it, 2 people were in a shack and 50-round calibers start coming through the wall. Somebody's going to die.
You have to survive that.
And I like Kinsey, so I had to kill him. And everybody got really
pissed. You jerk.
Yeah, it worked in Game of Thrones. Why wouldn't it work in this? But yeah, it did not so much.
And I was kind of thinking along those lines too. I usually average between 4 and 5 stars on my novels, and that one's creeping in around 3.
Yeah, and it's hard on those. You have certain rules that no one really tells you about that you learn a lot of times by kind of reading reviews of other authors. Like before I started writing in post-APOC, and this is something for a lot of new readers, is I studied the hell out of my genre that I was going into. So I studied post-apocalyptic fiction very, very well. I looked at who the top authors were, I read their books, and then I read reviews of probably about 20 to 30 different authors that I could find, good and bad. And that really kind of brought together an idea of what the readers really want. Like you said, Alan, you don't kill the dog. Joe, don't kill the protagonist. You got to stay away from rapes. You need, believe it or not, EMP fiction still, selling like hotcakes. We've
You
learned
should imply that danger of rape. That's okay.
danger of rape,
but
okay, but you have to really toe the line on that. Like you can't, you have to know when you're overstepping. And as I hope we don't get in trouble for saying this, but penetration is overstepping. In any manner, you have to.
Yeah.
If that's going to happen, you got to stop that action before that gets there, because you're going to upset a lot of people, especially people who are survivors of that. And the survivors of that want to see someone not get harmed while seeing unbelievable amount of damage done to the rapist. That's a joyous moment I've heard from a lot of different survivors. So I'm okay kind of towing the line, but you still get people that, say you're a perv or have no understanding that I don't like this, but this is a reality of what the apocalypse might be like. And it's our job as writers to make the apocalypse as real as we possibly can, so that it sucks you into the story and you forget that you're in a story, and you think, or you forget you have the life around you and you're in a story. That's our job. We try and make it as real as we can while sparing, some of the tough moments. But you have a lot of people who are survivors of rape, more so than I've even realized. And it's made me aware of how I write some of those things, and that it's okay to really do the worst to a rapist. And in The Ashes of the Unspeakable, which I just finished, that's my book that just came out, there's some horrible stuff that's done to a rapist, and I felt good about it, and I didn't really worry that the readers were gonna go, oh my god, because it's bad. but in a joyous way. So
is this the last book in this series, or does the series go on?
The series goes on. So this is the second book in the series.
Book in the series. Okay.
Release schedule is I do quickish release books, and so I'll usually do a first and a second book within 2 to 3 weeks. And what that does is that really grabs Amazon's algorithms, because as book one starts to slow down a little bit, book two now comes in, and if you've got a really good release on book one, it puts it near the top or at the top of the new releases. And then once that starts to wane just a little bit, book two comes in right behind it, and people see now 2 of your books. And if you've got really good reviews, like I have on these books, people go, oh, I want to read that one. Now there's 2 books. So people will jump in. So one bolsters the other. And then those will carry themselves for probably the better part of, I think, anywhere from 30 days to almost as far as 90 days. Like Boyd Craven's The Farm series did unbelievable numbers. And we chatted about releasing book 1 and 2 fairly close, and he held off on releasing book 1 and did book 2 2 weeks afterwards, and that held solid numbers, like 500 and 600 in the store in terms of ranking for the better part of 90 days. And then at 90 days, boom, they started to tank. So,
which I believe he was relatively unsuccessful before that release.
No, Boyd is well loved. He's well loved within the DD12 community, and he's got several. It took a little while.
I thought he went through a few years of struggling before he hit it, like you did with urban fantasy.
He did.
I thought that was his big book, though. His big series.
I think the Still Surviving series really kind of jumped off. Like, he had a good following. Everybody loved Boyd, and if you know him, you know why. The guy's completely lovable. But he has an incredible following through DD12, and that's why it's nice to get some of these reader and writer communities together, because they really support each other. And so at this point in time, whatever Boyd puts out is going to be extremely successful. But you know what? Come to think of it, Joe, I think he kind of struggled through a couple different series and finding his way, and as consistent as can be. And that's one of the things I love about him is once he gets going, he's a dog with a bone. And
I'm not criticizing. I'm still there. I'm still there struggling.
In some ways, I feel that way too. You look at some of these people that are making $500,000 a month, and you go, "Man, I suck." But then you go where you're at, where you come from, and go, "Okay, maybe I'm not that bad." Yeah. But I think it's all relative.
Right.
That's one of the reasons Joe has the show. Joe and I have the show is we want to help other indie writers, help ourselves.
Yeah.
More than help ourselves, but so authors like you, it's great to have you on to to get the wealth of knowledge that you have. You've been there. You were in the trenches. You know, you were fighting, you know, to get your work out there. And what's the name of your urban fantasy series? Somebody asked.
It's the Swan Series, SWANN.
The Swan Series.
Yeah, that, and I've gone in and kind of re-edited some of that stuff, but that series is probably one of my most beloved series. So it's got a small following, you know, probably, I don't know, a few thousand readers. I don't advertise it. I don't talk about it. People will find it and read it, and they've absolutely loved it. So I still love that series probably more than most of my other things, because really what it's about is it's about empowerment of a woman. It's a young woman coming into power who is the ugly duckling that turned into the Swan. The Swan happens to be, you know, it ends up being one of the most powerful women in the universe. And so you can kind of see her progression. And some people say, oh, you know what, Swan kind of warms you up to Ryan's, you know, more hardcore post-apocalyptic fiction. It's not that way. The readers will tell you the hardcore post-apocalyptic fiction will warm you up for the Swan series, the later books, because it turns quite hardcore in a really good way. So again, you know, I learned to write character really deeply because she was my main character.
Sounds like you wrote for about 20 years before you published on Amazon, you know, which is very much the same way for me, writing in my basement, not believing anybody was ever going to see it, you know.
Yeah, a lot of people don't.
You know, and then Amazon came along. So, you know, I hear a lot of people bitch about Bezos and this and that and this and that, but they have provided a platform that the little guy can actually use and utilize and not get swamped by the big guys. And that's, I don't know, I think that's kind of incredible, actually.
It is.
I think it is too. Yeah, I don't always love Bezos' stance on things. But I love Bezos gave me a career that I've been wanting for 20 years, and all the people at KDP who are amazing, and you know, Amazon and their advertising people are just been incredible. Like I have not had a bad experience with them, and I interact with them quite a bit. I've not had a bad experience with them in 4 or 5 years. They've been amazing. I was just on the phone with them today. Even though there's a mix-up, they're awesome. They're like, okay, these are some of the solutions we'll try. We'll get it handled. It should be around within 24 hours. Let me know how that works. And so I'm like, okay, he runs a great business. May not pay as much as he should, but
yeah, well, would you? You know, I worked with a lot of employees, and a lot of employees don't earn as much as they're paid.
Oh yeah, I had him forever. Yeah. The big motivation to write is I don't want him anymore.
No matter what business I've been in, you go there and there's always 2 or 3 people that are busting their ass and getting the job done, and everybody else is slacking.
Yeah, I had a rule where I tell my guys, if I start losing sleep over you at night, I'm going to fire you. I'm going to put you on the shittiest crew in the store, and I would do that because you can't ruin my life because you don't want to do your job. I'm not going to let you.
Yeah, I was
a hard ass. I was hard to work for, but I went 1,000% for my guys, and so I had a lot of loyalty. And I love my guys. This is my family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, question.
Yeah.
Do you go to conventions, book signings, anything like that? Do you do that? Have you ever done it?
No? You know what? My writing schedule always seems to get in the way. I was going to try and get to Las Vegas. I was going to go to Vegas during, 2020 COVID, before the whole COVID thing came up. I was going to be on the panel with Kyla and supposed to be there with Hugh Howey and Boyd and Franklin Horton. So I was super excited about that. And then it got shut down, which was a big crap out because that was like the one I was going to get to. And then I wanted to get to NINC this year, but it was going on right around the same time as I released this book. And so I set my schedules up usually about 6 months to a year in advance. And because I don't necessarily know what my books are going to be about, like I don't know what books 3, 4, and 5 are going to be about. I'm putting book 4 or 3 together right now, outlining it. But because I don't always know, sometimes I give myself, 10 days to write a 350-page book and 20 days to edit. I wrote Dark Days of the Enclave, I think in 11 days with Kyla Stone. I said, okay, she was having she was kind of behind a little bit, and I said, well, let's write together. We'll be accountability partners, and we busted ass. I mean, actually, I think I did the book in 8 days, and she finished off hers in 11. And then we went through an editing. So I have an idea. I've seen you ask before, you a pantser or a plotter. I'm a hardcore plotter. I can't write as fast as I need to if I don't plot. So every day that I write, I know exactly what I'm going to write because I've got it mapped out in paragraphs, chapter by chapter. And it helps me organize the story too, so you don't get caught, in the trick bag 200 pages into and go, oh man, I just stopped my story. So by going through and creating, my 35 to 50 chapters, all have an outline with a paragraph or two. I can go read through it and make sure there's consistency, it's hitting timelines right. And then when I go and write into that document, I know exactly what's coming the next day, and my brain kind of start marinating before I go to bed. So
now, when you take a break,
going to conferences.
Now, when you take a break, do you okay, I'm going to take 2 weeks off, a month off, 4 months off? What do you tell your wife?
He reads 2 books, then gets back to writing.
Well, it's funny. I took 4 months off. Someone asked me, first of all, Lundy, I think it's Lundy swears I'm a robot, or that I have ghostwriters, and I tell him I've got,
He drinks.
Yeah.
He drinks.
Just a wee bit. Just a wee bit.
Lundy's proud of his drinks, and I love drinking. But yeah, he swears that I've got ghostwriters, but no, I do it myself. But I have to. I wrote for the first 4 years scared. So to answer a question that you didn't ask, Joe, what happens when you get out on your own and you quit your job? You're scared shitless for about the better part of 3 to 4 to 5 years, and you go.
That's why I'm waiting for Social Security to kick in. So I have a little cushion.
Yeah, well, Lundy just retired, and Franklin Horton just retired, and those guys are making out some.
Lundy's staying with GM.
Yeah, he retired from the Navy.
He retired from the Navy. Oh, okay. Yeah, he's a upper management with GM. He started Phalanx Press, and Alan and I were the first 2 members. So we've been hanging out with John for a long time.
I stalked him. That's how I got him.
We met him in Atlanta and in Nashville, and so yeah, we're pretty tight with John. He's a good man.
He's good people, definitely.
Yeah.
He's helped me out a couple of times on stuff that I needed for military stuff. Called Steve.
Oh yeah.
Because he flies a plane for a billionaire, and I needed answers on FPOs and
Stephen Bird. You said, is that who you said?
Yeah, Stephen Bird's in DD12.
Oh yeah.
Well, and yeah, Nick Cole is who I would contact. Well, he was a combat helicopter pilot, wasn't he?
No, not Nick Cole.
Dean Cole.
Yeah, Dean Cole. Nick Cole was an infantry officer.
Dean Cole did the Multiverse series. We had him on the show. Guy's brilliant. He's an awesome writer.
But see, that's an example of the indie world. You got all these guys to pick their brains,
Well, it was really funny because I was writing the Atlas Hargrove series, and I was in I think book 4, and I was thinking I'm bringing my people in from St. Petersburg, or actually Ukraine, Odessa, and I need to bring them to New York. And I'm like, okay, they're flying in. It's a billionaire's jet, and I need to land in New York. But I'm like, I don't think they have an FPO, which it's basically a private runway for rich people. I said, I don't think they have an FPO in there. So I called up Bird, and he's like, I fly a plane for a billionaire, and no, there's no FPO in there. It's New Jersey. I'm like, see, this is what I love about the indie world. And you have people everywhere who just love the fact that they get to be helpful, and I think that's part of the thing we miss in the world is there's so many good people in the world, and they've a lot of people just turn kind of angry and bitter and kind of died inside a little bit because it's stupid.
You see, and this is kind of what we hope for this show is, Alan and I have had relative success, not great success, but we would like to learn how to get successful and stay successful. And we know it just doesn't happen by accident.
No.
It can, but it doesn't. And we want we're hoping people will tune in and watch and see that if you're going to be an indie author, you have to have something behind you, some kind of career or some kind of history to build from. And you have to work at what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you constantly use your past as being a salesman and interacting with people and knowing systems and setting things up, closing deals.
Yeah.
You are constantly referring back to that as you write for probably every character that you have.
Yeah.
You know I do. And to come out and just think that you can just put a daydream on paper and it's going to be, and then you get your heart broken when it doesn't move and it gets criticized. It's like there are vicious people out there.
There are.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh my God, there are some. I find that they're not super prevalent. I mean, there are some.
No, they're not. There aren't. They aren't.
I had someone who was pissed off and gave me a 1-star review on The Burning Hollow because she or he, I'm not sure which gender it was, but based on the name, but I'm just gonna say she was upset because my character wanted to have, you know, a relationship with a childhood dog that he'd been away with for 13 years, and that those were wasted words. Which to me, I mean, I appreciate that she gave me a review, but as far as the sentiment, I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Double barrel effort, yeah.
We had DJ Mollet on, and Alan had to confess that he'd been holding a grudge against him for like 7 years.
Yeah, do you know DJ Mollet?
I know his work. His work's awesome.
He's a good guy. When I was first writing, and I had some readers that I sent the book out to read, you know, get their opinions on, right? Mm-hmm. And the first review, well, it wasn't a review, it was an email back. You know, if you really want to keep writing, yeah, go ahead, but you really need to write like DJ Mollet. I was like, really? And so for all these years, I had this grudge with DJ. I'm like, yeah, DJ Mollet, yeah. Nice guy. And I confronted him. He laughed his ass off. So for years, I've been trying to write like you, man.
I got to tag onto that. So the dog hating lady, she says, or he, whichever, we'll just, you know, whatever. She says, I've been trying to find a book like Lundy's with Tango Foxtrot. I'm like, fuck you.
Well, okay, here we go, Ryan.
Because that's it. And you want to
well, here we go, Ryan. Write a book with Lundy and say, oh yeah, I love the way Lundy writes in the review on the book, and there's 4 other authors in there.
Yep. Jason Casper's a friend, and he's a hell of a writer. I mean, he's an amazing writer. It's probably some of the best military fiction I've ever read as Jason Casper, and he's an extremely nice guy in real life. And we had a series that came out that actually Lundy was in there, and it's myself and Kyla Stone and ML Banner and JJ. And so there was it was Where We Hit the USA bestsellers list, and Jason Casper was in there. And Jason just came in and cleaned house. Like, people were like, we love Jason's story so much. And you're like, you guys are good too. We're like, at the same time, you go read Jason's stuff and you're like, okay, now I understand why. That dude's a hell of an author.
Yeah. It's funny, you know, we give him crap about that because it's like, oh, so you wrote that book by yourself, huh?
Yeah, five authors in it, and Lundy's the only one who gets credit.
Yeah, good job, Lundy. Thanks for giving us.
Hey, Ryan, I want to tell you, this has been a really great show.
It has been.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to rewatch it because you have some very valuable points. I hope we didn't annoy you enough to the point where you won't come back and see us.
I'd be happy to come back. Love you guys,
all
man.
Right.
Great.
That's great. Great. Because we'll have you back because we got a lot to learn, and you're a good speaker.
Well, hey, if you ever in Reno, hit me up, man. I'll buy you a beer.
That sounds fantastic. We'll buy you some whiskey.
Yeah, even better.
Yeah, one of the things, I don't know if your audience is primarily readers or writers, but if you ever feel like you want to do a topic where, you know, you want to discuss launch strategy or stuff like that, maybe do a half-hour show, give me a buzz. We'll put something together. I love teaching.
That would be awesome. We'd probably do that through which side's it on? Wyrd Realities. We have a group of authors that are working together. Yeah, I thought it was your nipple. Everything's backwards.
We've all got our nipples below the screen for the sensors.
Ryan, our boss, she's watching the shows, and she said yes. So yeah, definitely, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
All right, well, you guys let me know if I'm in the middle of a book. We'll get hooked up after I get it launched, and we'll go from there.
no problem. No problem. We all understand how that goes.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the show. Truly,
Thank you, Ryan.
I appreciate it.
All right, thank you guys.
And thank you everybody for joining us too.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We're gonna try and do more of these.
Hope you had fun.
All right. We are out.
Out.
All right.
Seriously, that was a good show.